Hey, I'm FriendlyBaron and welcome to episode 7 of my series Casual vs Speedrun in GTA 5. After the end of the last mission, Hood Safari, our speedrunner and casual are in different areas of the map due to how they finished the last mission. The speedrun turned around and headed directly towards a place to lose the cops and get a car, while the casual had to do a shootout and then drive Lamar home. The speedrun is taking a direct route through the sewers, and they are now both headed to the start of the mission scouting the port, which is the start of a block of GTA's most hated missions that this episode happens to cover. Scouting the port, Did Somebody Say Yoga, and Minisub are often considered the most boring missions in the game, especially on a replay, and By the Book is controversial for its torture scenes, which we'll discuss later. Luckily for this video, there are quite a few tricks for the speedrun to pull off during all of these missions, which makes them interesting to cover. A quick refresher for returning viewers, or disclaimer for new viewers, this series intends to show the gameplay difference between the casual and speedrun playthroughs of this game, with the casual being defined by what the average player looks like by following Rockstar's idea of how the mission should go, not a single person's experience. There may be tricks or techniques mentioned quickly in this video you don't recognize or understand, in which case they were probably explained in one of my previous episodes, but feel free to ask questions if something has not been properly covered. The speedrun is focused on racing lines and good driving as always, including getting a nice brake boost off the sidewalk here, and curb boosting all over the place. They will as well take a shortcut by hopping back into the sewer to get over to the port quicker. In this mission, Trevor forces Wade's cousin Floyd to take him to his workplace at the docks to figure out what they will steal, and it's technically a stealth mission where you have to play as a dock worker while doing recon. The casual is following the yellow line as always given by Rockstar to the mission, and while the casual is getting bolder with traffic and corner cutting as they learn the map, they are nowhere near the speedrun's level yet, who jumps off the road over to the train tracks, narrowly missing the oncoming train that often spawns here. This train bridge is the first bridge that leads to this area of the port, so it makes sense to take it. The speedrun will turn off early and take nice lines up to the next part of the mission. I'm going to pause the speedrun at this upcoming corner, as it made seem weird they don't cut it further. I once hit this corner tighter and was confused on why I crashed. Turns out there are invisible hedges here. If you try to cut any tighter, you run right into them. Thanks to Whitey White for opening this up in the map editor to understand what's going on here. There are often lots of weird propping issues like this around the map, but this is one of the most glaring ones. Continuing on, the speedrunner makes sure to parallel park normally against this gas station to not spook any NPCs if you come in at too weird of an angle. Both players get out of the car and send poor Wade off the sewage cleanup. Normally here, the casual is just going to walk along with Floyd as Trevor asks some questions. You walk faster than Floyd and have to slow down a bit, or you outpace him and fail the mission. The speedrun can go into first person and walk right behind him to push him along faster. It only saves 3 seconds over the course of this walk, but every little bit adds up, especially for such an easy trick. This requires first person as the movement in that camera maintains a constant speed, even though it's less than a mile per hour faster, while third person walking and running often varies during stride. Counting off the time saved from the yellow line on the ground, the speedrun hits it in 1, 2, 3 seconds early, and then instead of going into the cab via the ladder, the speedrun gets onto the front of the crate handler and spams the button to get in from here. This confuses the game as we are getting in as it cannot find a path to get the character into the door, so it teleports us in quicker. Normally the delay of the game trying the path and hitting the I can't find this vehicle door timeout is not long enough to be worth it, but since this vehicle has such a long animation of climbing up the stairs and ladder into the cab, it's faster to do the skip here. The speedrun is going to wiggle the dock tug back and forth to gain speed. This tall vehicle with spongy suspension can basically give itself curb boost. If you haven't seen my video covering those, it's basically a glitch/oddity in the game where when the suspension of a vehicle compresses, it increases the RPMs and therefore the speed of the vehicle. It's weird, and even weirder that this is one of the vehicles that can do it on its own, only a handful can. The speedrun will otherwise pick up this crate normally, and raise it a bit to make tighter lines around these upcoming barriers. When dropping the crate, it does not matter how high the crate is, only that the vehicle is at or near stopped when releasing. The speedrun will again wiggle back up to speed, then take a different route in order to carry momentum as they pick up the second crate. This can be done well enough to lose barely any speed, though it is finicky. Other examples of cars that can wiggle boost like this would be the Rumpo Custom Van and the Brioso Compact. I'll link a video in the description with some more info about how it's done and what it looks like. Once dropping off the crates, both views will head to the crane. The speedrun runs over in first person to get tight lines around the crates, then switches to third person to get up the first ladder quickly, then first person to run up the stairs optimally, then back to third person for the final 2 ladders. Finally, the speedrun goes back in the first person to run off the side to fall into the checkpoint, switching back to third person just as the cutscene begins. The speedrun will switch to the top-down view and begin moving the two crates right away. The casual struggles to figure out the controls of this generally disliked minigame. The speedrun does not have much optimization to do, besides moving the boom from side to side while raising it in order to not waste any time in lighting it later on. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. When setting down the first crate on the truck, the speedrun makes sure to continue to hold down on the controls to avoid a bug where the mission may fail even though you place the crate correctly, then moves it to the side right away to again not waste time. For once, I am basically left speechless in my commentary. This section is quite a boring minigame with janky controls, but not much interesting about it. So even though the two players resync here thanks to the fast forwarding, the casual has lost a minute to the speedrun since getting out of the dock handler. As the cutscene ends, the speedrunner will be spamming the spacebar to climb the ladder, but not the usual ways that us mere mortals climb up ladders. We now need to take some pictures of the boat. Running is blocked here, but the speedrun takes a jump, then brings up the phone during that momentum. The speedrun will instantly take a picture of the front, middle, and back of the boat to quickly cover the needed criteria, while the casual reads the help text that explain to take a picture of the bow, a guard, then the rear. The speedrun uses the same trick from episode 3 to press right on the phone twice that covers 5 spots each time to land on Ron and send him the pictures. As soon as the phone disappears from Trevor's hand after sending him the pictures, the speedrun falls to his death. While falling but just moments before hitting the ground, the mission updates to the next objective, signifying the checkpoint has been reached, which respawns the speedrun already on the ground next to the truck we need to go into. If the speedrun jumped off too early before the mission progressed, they would respawn getting out of the crane's cab again. Our casual has finished taking the pictures, and thanks to the terrible ladder detection in this game, they fall off too, which is exactly how a strat like this gets discovered, though our casual most likely doesn't realize he's saved himself 20 seconds of going down more ladders. Now both players will be driving this truck over to the Merriweather dock, and besides the speedrun taking better racing lines and perfectly squeezing through the gate, it's the same drive. Quite a few people have asked me why things like death warps to the hospital and checkpoint abuse like falling off the crane here is allowed, while using a taxi is not. To clarify, this speedrun comparison is of the class of percent category for GTA 5, where certain strats like mission skipping by failing 3 times and calling taxis are banned in order to make the run both more competitive and more fun to play and watch. Taxis would be used nearly every other mission to instantly skip to the start of the mission, and add lots of RNG due to lucky taxi spawns around the map instead of having to call one. They increase the time spent in the menu selecting where to go on the minimap, which breaks the flow of the gameplay. Taxis remove lots of driving between the missions, which is one of the biggest skills in the game. Being good at driving in GTA is equally as important as being a good shooter. The hospital warps and checkpoint skips that are allowed are only used a handful of times, and generally skip the most boring or not important parts of the run, and don't fully remove the drives but rather shorten them. On paper it's a good question, but once explained it becomes clear why the community has chosen to allow one and not the other. The trucks have conveniently arrived at the warehouse just as I finish talking about taxis. After the cutscene, the speedrun will enter first person and run and look to the left, as well as tapping tab to put the briefcase away to run a bit faster. This sets up a vehicle to spawn to our right and then drive into a spot we can just barely nab it. The old strategy here was to take the truck on the right and search for a car. Then we found that just suiciding once when the mission progressed would spawn a car, then it was found that this specific run would consistently allow a car to spawn. Car spawns generally require that you are a bit of a distance away from the spawn location and not looking at that location. This consistent spawn generally gives a decent car in the muscle, compact, or SUV class, but if you get something terrible, a quick suicide acts as a reroll. The speedrun gets going right away, while the casual hunts for a car, and hunts, and hunts, and hunts. That length it takes to find anything decent is why a consistent spawn here was important for the speedrun. The casual finally gets a car and heads back to the apartment in Vespucci Beach, where the speedrun is headed as well to finish the mission. The speedrun is taking a direct route and basically going back the way he came, as well as using the open dirt area on the left of this bridge as a shortcut, before heading back into the sewers yet again. We use that area a bunch during this episode. Scouting the port is probably the second longest mission in the speedrun, and for our casuals playthrough, besides the third way at the end of the game. But that mission is much more action-packed than this one is. In fact, I had to redo my entire timer system as I had not made them long enough to handle the casuals' long time in this mission. The speedrun parks right next to the stairs, then punches to skip the forced walking, then jumps once inside to begin the cutscene. The choice on which version of the Merriweather heist is then made. The speedrun picks the freighter option here, and our casual will too for the main comparison. This heist is done within the next episode, and I will show a comparison between the speedrunner doing both the heist options and the setups as well. That brings an end to scouting the port. The casual took 18 minutes, and the speedrun 5 minutes less at 13 minutes due to better driving, nailing the minigames, the quicker death warp, and getting a car at the end right away. 5 minutes seems like a lot, but it's only 28% faster than the casual, compared to the average of 36% faster that the speedrun has been over the course of the game so far. Now we move on to Did Somebody Say Yoga? After the mission pass screen, a phone call from Michael is received, and then we can switch to Michael to begin the mission. Our casual, which is the same as Michael's M on the map, is the only main story mission available right now. For this video, I have shown the ideal perfect switch that takes us right to Michael's house. There are other switches that can happen here, at the beach, north of Vinewood, or other semi-random spots. It's definitely an RNG heavy part of the run, and in a proper playthrough our speedrun would have to engage other strats using a save file to try and switch again if they got unlucky the first time. A bad switch loses the speedrun 40 to 60 seconds on average. In this mission, we're going to try the bond with Jimmy by taking him down to the burger shop for father-son time, then get drugged and fall from the sky. Spoilers if you haven't seen the game, I guess. But first, we have to bond with our wife Amanda. There was no way to skip this. There was no strats besides just do the input for Yoga perfect as fast as possible. I warned you this episode had some of the most technically boring missions. If any of the parts of Yoga are failed, you have to restart that section, and there are 3 sections of 3, 4, and 7 inputs. I'll take this moment to say, if you are enjoying my video enough to sit through this mission, even fast forwarded, check out the other videos in this series. And if you like those, a sub to my YouTube channel really helps me a lot to be able to make more videos faster. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine too, I guess. Another channel related note, the audio problems from episode 6 should be solved here. I had a ground loop issue that was causing a buzz many of you mentioned. I've also changed the way I record my videos, which makes it easier for me to edit, as the previous video files caused way too much lag. As always, if you have suggestions or feedback, please let me know. Lots of little changes I've been making come from the comments. Okay, we made it through that. Now we have to go up to Jimmy's room. The speedrun is going to run and jump in third person through the house, then whip into first person to run up the stairs, then jump at the top of the stairs to avoid as much forced slowdown walking as possible. The casual arrives only 4 seconds later, but that's a lot of time for only 15 seconds of gameplay. It really shows how much good on-foot movement matters in this speedrun. We will again jump down the stairs to get to the car faster. If you remember episode 2, the mission Father-Son, we get Jimmy into the car faster here by running wide and he runs with us. Well, that doesn't work in this mission. We instead just get in and honk the horn, which causes him to run to the car. He does not run faster from honking in any other mission. The speedrun takes a direct route over to the burger shot, instead of following the twisty GPS route the casual will follow. As we get further into the runs, I'll probably just fast forward more and more some of the drives. While it is very important, there isn't much to commentate on besides going over every little boost and car avoidance the speedrun does, but that's too in-depth even for this series. Just seeing the route will give lots of info on why it's faster and improved. The voice lines don't really matter timing-wise on this drive, as the voice line will be force changed as you pull into the parking lot. Now heading back to Michael's house, the speedrun begins to make phone calls. A call to the taxi service, then 2 calls to Amanda. This is going to prevent the speedrun from getting drugged. Watch the casual side. Jimmy hands Michael the red drink cup, which is spiked with something, which causes the casual to get inebriated and makes driving very hard because the inputs are basically randomized. On the speedrun side, Michael's hand is busy with the phone, so he doesn't actually take the drink from Jimmy, it just kind of floats there. The casual is now drugged and crashing all over the place. The speedrun is sober and nearly back to Michael's house, but the game doesn't want you to make it back, so it forces you to stop with this funny hop due to upward momentum, then plays the cutscene and rest of the mission as if you were drugged. It's kinda neat the game works like this, where Michael only gets drugged once he actually drinks, so by having the phone out, the speedrun avoids the soda cup. It has to be phone calls, as just having the phone up but not making a call will have Michael put the phone away in order to take the cup. The casual's cutscene has started now too, but the speedrun saves time by having the cutscene force started by getting close to the house. The speedrun makes the calls to the taxi service as it's the longest phone call we can make there, then calls to Amanda are made since she's first on the contact list after that, just to get back into the being in a call state as fast as possible. For this fall to the ground, the speedrun knows they are going to die, so what we do is turn around and head towards this apartment complex by pushing straight down. By smashing into the highest building in close range as fast as possible, the speedrun gets into the next cutscene very quickly compared to just pushing down, and much faster than the casual, who floats around for a moment before fruitlessly trying to save themselves by going into a pond at the golf course. The speedrun wakes up at the park, and instead of taking the close by bicycle, he wants to get a car to go faster, but also the save in the garage for a future mission. Running to the road, the speedrun is hoping to get a nice super or sports car to spawn in for him. By flipping the camera back and forth, the speedrun can force an extra set of spawns on the road usually, and gets lucky to have a bullet and a felter spawn very close by. The felter is chosen as the better pick here, as the mission that this vehicle will be used on later has lots of bumpy sections that the felter excels at, and squeezing through traffic with the wider bullet GT would just be a bit harder. Michael still has some effects from the drug to drink, even though the speedrun never took it, so the speedrun's driving looks a little erratic this time headed back to the house. The speedrun will park the car in the garage, making sure to touch the other car that we saved back on Mission 9, Friend Request, otherwise the current car will not save. As well, the speedrun has to make sure the door gets closed or it would again not save the car properly. The casual has now landed and takes the bicycle conveniently located directly in front of the frame of the camera back to the house, also under the effects of the drugs. That brings us to the end of the mission Did Somebody Say Yoga, as the casual rides the bike into the kitchen. Thanks to the long cutscenes and terrible yoga minigame, the speedrun takes 7.5 minutes, and the casual 2 minutes on top of that. This is only 22% faster, one of the least different mission lengths compared to the average 35% difference, but the better yoga, better driving, and the skips with the phone to not get drugged still do save the speedrun significant time. After the mission pass screen and small cutscene, we begin by the book. The speedrun will call Steve Haynes on the phone, using the press right to go 5 spaces mechanic. Then as soon as the call connects, the speedrun hangs up and can switch to Trevor, who is already at the location we need to go to. This mission does contain some gross and or graphic cutscenes due to it being a torture mission, and out of worry of YouTube policies and my own personal preference, I will be pixelating some of these cutscenes. The casual's journey to the mission is different. He does not have any main missions to do, so he started the drive around and was distracted by a shiny chrome car. The call from Steve eventually comes through from the game, and then the option to switch to Trevor is given right after, and the casual is now also at the starting point. We must now drive Dave back to a house near Michael's place. The speedrun will turn around and hop into the sewer to head that way instead of heading straight out like the casual does. You'll notice we use the sewer and the road the speedrun eventually ends up on often. Not only do these roads or paths happen to have main event locations around them, but they end up being the fastest way through the city in any form, so they get used as a general highway for the speedrun, often being the quickest way from A to B. The speedrun curb boosts up and down the sewer side then hops onto the road, while our casual gets stuck behind a train. Another benefit to using the same roads over and over is the ability to learn traffic patterns. There are quite a few oddities that cars pull off, like turning into random driveways, coming to a stop for no reason, or the fact that the tow trucks will sometimes get stuck on the terrain and bounce into random directions. It's an ability that can't be taught, only learn the hard way when it messes you up. The first torture scene happens, and our speedrun picks the wrench, as it has no interaction like the electricity or pulling a tooth, it can actually just be skipped as it's a pure cutscene. The casual picks it here too to keep the timing even for now. We get back into the car with Davey and take him up the coast. The speedrun will take a line into oncoming traffic that is rife with bumps to get a lot of brake boosts. The goal behind this mission is to extract information from the man being questioned in order to find a target to kill once we get up the coast. The stigma behind the torture scenes is unfortunate for this game, as it's probably part of the reason it's not very popular at speedrun conventions like GDQ, even though we do just skip the actual torture via cutscenes. The speedrun again picks the wrench, as it's the fastest option. Then the speedrun just shoots the correct person right away. We know exactly who it is and where he will be sitting. The casual has a lot more work to do to figure out who to kill, like a game of Guess Who. The casual has to do a torture scene to get info, use that info by looking around as Michael with the sniper, and back again over and over. It's nice the game has special voice lines that the speedrun hears when you shoot the correct guy right away. I'm sure someone is wanting to comment, well, I just shot everyone right away until I got the right person. And yes, that is something the casual could do if they wanted to ruin my perfectly nice video showing a proper comparison. The casual has to go back and forth 3 times, and different torture scenes are longer in length. The water pouring and the electricity are longest, and the tooth pulling is not too long, and also happens luckily to be the one the speedrun is most often to select wrongly if they mess up and don't get the wrench. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip the rest of the casual switches between the torture and sniper parts, up to where the voice lines confirm the correct guy to hit and he takes the shot. From here, the next objective is to take the guy to the airport. Our speedrun again turns around, but instead jumps over the sewer, just barely making it across with a small run-up. The speedrun holds the gun out for a moment while jumping to skip the cutscene that usually plays when doing stunt jumps. This gives the speedrun an easy route with a few important brake boosts over to the airport terminal, while the casual has to navigate the twisty freeway bits. That'll bring us to the end of By the Book, and due to the quicker start to the mission, faster driving, and instantly shooting the guy on the coast instead of the prolonged torture, the speedrun finishes in 4 minutes, a staggering 8 minutes ahead of the casual. That's 65% faster, and becomes the biggest time difference between the two missions, with Crystal Maze back in episode 5 being the second biggest time save at 64% faster. Minisub was our final mission this episode, which is a setup mission for the Merryweather heist that must be done for both options. The speedrunner will instantly begin heading to the docks where the mission will spawn, but the casual isn't entirely sure what to do and begins to head to the car customization shop to goof around more. This mission is one of a few upcoming missions that must be started when you receive a certain text, kind of like carbine rifles back in episode 3. You can think of the text in this game like being in a funnel that slowly drips out every 20 seconds whenever you are not in a mission. Whenever certain events happen, more text will be put into the funnel, and sometimes the game will even give certain ones priority and push them down faster. But in some instances like here, we are just at the mercy of which message will pop out of the funnel first. The casual actually receives the mini subtext from Wade first, as they have been slower to start new missions and therefore have less text available to receive, so they set a map waypoint and head that way. The speedrun is nearly already at the docks and gets lucky enough to get the text message before arriving. If the speedrun is unlucky with the messages, they might have to wait for another 1 to 6 or so messages, and at 20 seconds of text, it could theoretically be up to 2 minutes of time loss due to random number generation in the game. RNG sucks. The speedrun would have to wait back at the entrance of the port for the text to spawn as well, as the message won't come in when you're close to the sub's location already. The casual has been following the GPS and nearly caught up to the speedrun thanks to fast forwarding. Once he arrives, the casual will be sneaking onto the ship and press a button on board to drop the submarine. Our speedrun has a better plan though. He'll pull forward and take out a gun and just shoot the sub down by taking out all 4 wires, then jumping into the water and swimming over. The casual goes up the stairs sneaking to get to the drop button. It's not exactly slow since he doesn't alert any guards, but the speedrun's way is much better. Once in the submarine, the speedrun will be doing what we call the dolphin strat. The speedrun will dive down for a moment, then pop back up by holding the tilt back and raise depth button at the same time. This will be held for about 10 seconds, then repeated over and over again, for about 3 minutes. It takes that long to get to the end of this sub part. Even with this strategy, it's so slow. The dolphin mechanic works because the more of the sub is out of the water, the faster it goes. So the speedrun pops out of the water until they slowly sink back in, basically until the metal tubes on the side go below the surface. Then does it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. The casual will be moseying on over at a slightly slower pace, seeing the sights underwater. The orcas are neat, but being fully submerged is slow, so the speedrun avoids that. As well, notice the casual has lots of waves due to being on the current patch, while the speedrun has flat water thanks to being on a certain patch of the game from 2015 that has no waves in missions. I've skipped ahead to spare us watching the entire submarine section as well, but no, the casual loses about a minute on the way over in just the sub. Now we just need to take the truck and sub over to the storage location. The speedrun will take an early turn to bash the fence and get a better line into the giant shed. The speedrun will use the C4 to blow open the fence nearby to get to a parking lot that is consistently full of cars, and pick out the best one to take. They then shoot open the driver's side window of whichever one they will get into to skip the mashing animation. The casual saw a truck when heading into the shed and goes back to try and take that, but is unable to get into it. Turns out he looks a fool as that's Floyd's truck, and the casual will have to go grab his own vehicle still to get moving again. After a moment more, the mission pass screens come up, and that's the end of Minisub. Thanks to knowing to go straight to the mission spawn point, the dolphin strat, and shooting down the sub, the speedrun finishes in just over 6 minutes, which is just under 4 minutes faster than the casual's 10-minute time. That's 37% faster, which almost matches the average time saved of 36.5%, for a total time saved of 1 hour and 26 minutes so far over the run, and 18 minutes this episode alone. Thanks for watching and for all the feedback on the series. I think I'm pretty happy with how this episode turned out production quality wise, but if you have tips or ideas, feel free to let me know, and thanks to everyone who has already helped me improve this series. See you next time.